Hi everyone, it's Sharon Cardos and welcome back to my channel. So in the past few videos, we have been talking a lot about classroom management. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about parent communication and how that can help you with your classroom management. It seems kind of odd, right? Parents aren't in your classroom, so how could they possibly help you with your classroom management? Well, in the last video, we talked about a progressive discipline plan, and we talked about how parent communication, whether it's a parent phone call or a parent email, could possibly be one of those consequences that you give a student who might be misbehaving. So today I just kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like and how you can make it a little bit less stressful for yourself. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, keep watching. So I am just now finishing my 31st year as a teacher. So back in the day when I started, there was no email. I had no computer in my classroom. I had no cell phone, no smartphone. I had one phone available to me at school, and it was in the teacher workroom, and it was attached to the wall. So I didn't really have a lot of choice. When I wanted to communicate with parents, I could send something snail mail, or I could go into the workroom and make a phone call. Talk about stressful and intimidating, practically panic, anxiety inducing, right? Well, over the years, I've gotten better at it. So I wanted to share with you just my thoughts on the subject and maybe give you a few tips on how you could make it less stressful for yourself. So when you're calling to talk about a student's behavior, so back in the day when I would call to talk about a student's behavior, I would write everything out in advance. I would practice it. I never really called right when the behavior happened because I just had to practice what I was going to say, right? And I wanted to make sure that I said it professionally and that I was getting all my points across, right? But looking back on it, those phone calls never really went the way that I thought they were going to go. And I would stress about maybe like if I'm calling to tell someone something negative about their child, that they would possibly yell at me over the phone, or that I was going to be the victim of some verbal abuse. And I have to say, in all the years that I have been teaching, that's really only ever happened like one or two times, maybe. One in particular that I can remember, but maybe a couple of other times it got a little heated, but I was able to talk the situation back down. So what do? How do you handle these types of situations? Because you're calling to talk to someone about their child. Well, I do want to tell you, it does get easier. So the more you do it, the easier it will become. Lots of times, by the time I had gotten off the phone with the parent, they were thanking me for calling and letting them be aware of a situation before it had blown up into something bigger. And they were glad that I had called before I gave their child consequences and just kind of let them know. And that was something that I had to learn because in the beginning, I wanted to procrastinate, And so that was something that I had to learn, not to wait until the issues got really big, that I wanted to make sure that I called early on before something got too big and it became a bigger issue. And why do we want to call parents? Well, because they know their child better than we do. We see their child for a little while every day, especially in the secondary classroom. I see them maybe 45, 50 minutes a day, and I don't always know them like the parent knows them. So I always like to try to talk to the parent and get them on my side. Now, in talking with a lot of younger teachers today, they have told me that they prefer to send emails. They don't really like calling parents. And especially in this post-COVID world, which I find interesting, after the pandemic, a lot more teachers, even some of the veteran teachers, have said that they just prefer to communicate via email. And while email does have its place, I really am of the opinion that phone calls are the way to go in many of these instances when we're working on our classroom management issues or just student behavior issues. So some of the pros to emails, because emails do have their place, are that they're convenient. You can edit them. Their documentation, it's very clear exactly what was said and when the emails were sent. And if you get a nasty email back from a parent, it's not quite as bad as being told off in person sometimes. And you can reach the parent any time of day. So emails definitely do have their place. However, I'm hoping to change your mind by the end of this little video. I really think that parent phone calls can sometimes be the better route. So some of the cons of an email would be that it's not very personal, and the tone or the inflection that I want to present is not always what is perceived. Sometimes people say things in emails that they would not say in person. And that can be evidenced, all over social media. People are much more comfortable saying things behind their typewriter, their keyboard, typewriter, that dated me, didn't it? Behind their keyboard than they are in person. So definitely that is a con to me for emails. And honestly, emails take me so much longer to compose because I want to get every little thing correct. And I spend so much time revising it and editing it. Whereas a parent phone call, I just pick up the phone and it tends to just occur naturally. So when I get to that point in my progressive discipline plan, and if you don't know what that is, you can check out the link in the description and I'll post that there. So when I get to that point into my progressive discipline plan where I need to call a parent, then I really want to get that parent on my side. I want to try to build a relationship with that parent. So it's not just about building relationships with students, it's also about building those relationships with parents. And honestly, some of the parents that I work with, they don't read or write very well sometimes, and they would prefer a phone call to an email. Now, that's not all parents. Some parents do definitely prefer emails, but many of my parents say that they prefer a parent phone call. And here's the thing, a phone call is just more personal, and I'm talking about someone's child. So I really want that communication to be personal. It should be personal. So and the ebb and the flow of the conversation, it's more of a two-way street rather than me just presenting information. So one of the things that I like to do is I do like to ask parents, for their input. You know your child better than I do. Do you have any insight how I could best help your child? And that is enlisting them, and that's getting them on your side. So one of the things that you can do is that you can follow a quick outline or make your own little outline before you make the parent phone call. It doesn't have to be like super detailed, but just enough to just like give you some talking points so that when you call, everything doesn't just like fly out of your head. So one of the things I like to do, obviously first, is the greeting. I like to introduce myself and just remind them who I am, especially in secondary when your children the students have so many teachers, it's hard to keep them all straight sometimes as a parent. So, and I'm talking as a parent and not just a teacher. So I try to introduce myself and remind them, hey, I'm Mrs. Cardos and I'm your child's math teacher. If I can, I try to start with something positive, or just remind them about the last time that we talked. I know I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about and then get into why I'm calling today. I don't want to spend a long time with them on the phone. They're busy. I'm busy. Sometimes I'm calling them. They're at work. And they've been gracious enough to pick up the phone, so I want to make sure that I am considerate of their time. So I jump right in and I explain what the current issue is at that point. And I ask the parent to discuss the issue with their child at home. I give them an action step. I just ask them to discuss it with their child. And like I said, I might ask them for some suggestions at that point of things that they find that work. I may also let them know where we are in that progressive discipline plan and be like, if these behaviors continue, unfortunately, these are the steps that I'm going to have to take. So whether it is writing a referral or whatever it would be. So the parents almost always, they really appreciate it, and they appreciate you giving them the chance to talk to their child and correct the issue before consequences necessarily have to be assigned. So in talking with a lot of new teachers, when they come to me and they say they're having, a lot of issues with students, one of the first things I will ask is, have you talked to their parent? And they'll say no. So this is not a step that you can let go by. Now, some parents are difficult to get a hold of. They don't return your phone calls. They actually block the school number. I mean, we've all had instances like that. But on the whole, most parents want what is best for their child, and they want to help you help their child. So making that effort to make that phone call and make it personal is something that you can do for that parent and for that student. And there's no chance of misinterpreting what is going to be said like it might be in an email with your tone or with your inflection. After the phone call, I usually try to, before we hang up, I always thank them for their time. I thank them for their support, and then we just kind of go off the phone. I try to keep it to 5 minutes. You don't really want to some parents are more talkers than others. You don't want it to just keep dragging on. So just remind them that, hey, if you could just talk with them at home, and I'll keep working with them here at school, and maybe we can turn this thing around. You want to try to end the phone call on a positive note. And then after the phone call, I always make sure that I document who I spoke to, what number I called, the date, the time, which parent I actually reached. Sometimes it might be the mom, sometimes the dad, sometimes the grandma. And if I left a voicemail message because I could not get a hold of the parent, I also like to document that as well. So if parent phone calls are something that you feel like kind of intimidating to you, I would recommend that you start with positive phone calls, because everybody likes to get that positive phone call about their child. Even if you just leave a voicemail message that's positive. Sometimes parents are so used to getting bad news from the school that they won't answer the phone. And then when they check their messages, for them to hear, a positive message about their student, that can go a long way in you building the relationship with that parent. It also lets that student know that you and their parent are in communication, and you and their parent are on the same side. And it's not necessarily the student and the parent against you. The two adults are working together on this situation. So it can be something that could turn your classroom management around if you institute it, and you institute it properly. Like I said at the beginning, emails do have their place, and I'm not saying never email at all. But if you're looking to build a relationship with a parent, and if you're looking to use that to improve your relationship with the student, then definitely parent phone calls, to me, are much better than emails. So if you have an opinion about parent phone calls versus emails, drop it down in the comment box below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you are interested in more of these videos, please hit subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you in the next video.